want to welcome Supervisor Barrett, who has snuck in during the first segment. Now it's your turn to ask questions, and the rules are a little bit different. You can ask a question to a specific candidate, but both candidates will be able to respond to it. Or you can ask a question to both candidates, and then we will continue the alternating order. You guys want to jump in here? You're certainly welcome to do that. I'll kick it off with a question to both of you, and Jim, that goes to you first because it's your turn. Whichever one of you is successful, or Craig, we don't want to leave him out of it, but whichever Republican we send to the Assembly in the 9th Assembly District, by all accounts, is going to be in a minority, and a relatively small minority. How will you influence policy? How will you keep the promises that you're making during this campaign when you have you'll be in such a small conference? Jim?
Well, I think Jennifer would agree with me that one way or another, Whalen is going to be the eventual nominee for the Republican Party. That's an excellent question, and it's a question that I've been asked many times, which is, realistically, as an Assembly Republican, what change can you hope to effect? And for me, again, it comes down to leadership. I refuse to be an Assembly Republican who sits in a corner, who is simply a voice, a name that somebody hears about from time to time. They think they see me in Price Chopper, and that's about it. I think as an Assembly Republican, you have the power of, as Teddy Roosevelt said, the bully pulpit. I think you can go out there and you can stand for your principles: less taxes, lower government, less government spending, less intrusive government, less invasive regulations, private sector job growth. I think we've had leaders in the past. I think Jim Tedisco comes to mind as someone who's done a good job of getting out there in front of those issues and highlighting those issues that are important to this district and to Republicans in general. And I think that's something that I can affect to do. Something that I would like to do when I get to Albany is to create some sort of Young Republicans caucus and to come up with some sort of upstate caucus. Right now, 75% of the population of the state of New York lives in Poughkeepsie on South. And this is not an upstate versus downstate divide, as we were talking about before with local governments. We're all in this together. I love downstate, I love upstate. But the fact of the matter remains, the political leadership in New York State looks like a subcommittee of the New York City Council. And I refuse to stand by and allow our tax dollars to flow downstate without fighting for what's important. I intend to be a loud, a vocal voice for my constituents and what's important. That is, again, those principles of less taxes, less government, private sector job growth. Thanks.
Jennifer?
Well, I think that in your question, you assume that we're going to be in the minority, which we're not going to be in the minority in the Assembly. I really think that there are going to be some historical gains in the Assembly this election cycle. The voters and the residents of the district are not voting for anyone that is an incumbent. And when I go door to door, they absolutely ask me 100% in 3 different ways if I've ever been a public servant or if I'm sitting in the legislature now. And when I assure them that I'm not, they call me into their living rooms, we start talking about problems that they have, and they thank me for stepping up to try to save our state. So I have high hopes that we're going to close the minority in November. And the one thing that I think any of my former employers would tell you about me is that I hate being bored, and I'm a real pain. Like, I like to work. When I went to serve under Dennis Bacco as an assistant attorney general, I had files that I got from the previous administration that were 14 years old that had dust on them. They were construction files. Witnesses were dead. People were in nursing homes. And I started making summary judgment motions on these files, started moving them along, making motions to dismiss, getting good law, getting them moving, getting them settled, and collecting money for the state. And that's how I'm going to approach my job in the legislature. I am going to just team up with other people. I'll reach across the aisle if I have to. I will just come up with a lot of great bills and keep pummeling them with good ideas and bills and paperwork, and I will be a real fighter and an advocate for our constituents. And I look forward to working very hard for the people of our region and using my wide range of experience and well-rounded experiences in life and in my profession to try to do the best job that I can in the legislature through hard work
Thank you very much.
and inundating them with paperwork and ideas.